Hello and welcome to the Colourcube Challenge. Now, what is this gorgeous box of loveliness? Well, this is the viral product designed by the amazing Sarah Rennie Clark. I will link to her channel below. And it is the Colourcube. It is a box of inspiration and colour combos for you to use to spark your creativity, to get you started as to what you want to do. It is amazing. I love it so much. Now, I am obsessed by colour, she says, wearing black. But yeah, I love colour. I love colour theory. I'm passionate about it. I have books on the psychology of colour, on the history of colour. I buy art supplies in every colour possible if I can. Whatever I can afford in that moment, I will get the biggest amount of colours that I can because I just love colour. Despite that, and despite owning an obscene amount of art supplies, I still stick to my favourite, which tends to be Copics in a hot pink, teal and lime green. That always seems to be what I bring together. So I've deliberately bought this to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone, to stop going for those familiar favourites that I know that work, and to sort of expand my creativity. Now, I have done that this year. I have created some paper pads that have been out with those sort of normal colours, and I do love them. Obsessed by the chocolate marshmallow one. I've already gone through 3 packs of that. However, I have noticed, despite the fact that things have improved, I've been using more mediums this year and I have been using more colour combos this year, I still stick to my favourites. I still go through and go, yeah, I like that one, yeah, I like that one, I like that one. So I think the only way to truly push myself fully outside of my comfort zone is to work through every single colour combo in these cubes. That is 400 in total. So I am setting myself the Colourcube Challenge. I am hoping, because I know many of you have this. If you don't, details of how to get yours will be in the description box as well. I'm hoping somebody might join me. A few of you might join me. I think this would be a really good exercise in creativity, a really good prompt to kind of get you started on days where your mojo's lost or whatever. I don't exactly know how I am going to go about doing this challenge. I am hoping that a video once a week will go up. Once I'm ahead enough, I'll commit to that, but I'm going to try my best. I don't know how many cards we're going to cover per video. So maybe a standard video might have 3 to 4 cards, depending on what I'm doing. But then if I'm going to go full-blown mixed media altered art, it would just be the one project. So conservatively, I reckon that this challenge is going to take me at least 2.5 to 3 years to complete. But hopefully we will have learned a lot along the way and I will have improved as an artist and a crafter. I'm also hoping, as I said, that you might join me. If you do, please use the hashtag Colourcube Challenge and yeah, I can find you. And we have a mammoth task. So without further ado, I think we just need to get started. Let's start at the very beginning, as it's a very good place to start with card number 1. Now, what I do like about these cards is on the reverse side, they do actually give you 3 different tones of the same colour. That works marvellously for me because I do like to colour using shadow, midtone and highlight. I do feel that if I was colouring without trying my best to follow exactly what was in the card, I would give my shadows a lot more depth. But we are just going with it. I want to work as closely to these cards as possible because I am trying to push myself outside my comfort zone, expand my creativity. And so that means not necessarily going with what you are comfortable with. Now this colour combo, I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but I don't hate it. I don't particularly feel strongly either way. I like the pink and the red. They're some of my favourite combos. Yellow, I do like the colour yellow as well. And the fact that we've got the caramel in there gives a fabulous neutral tone for the hair and the face, as you're seeing me use here with a fabulous flicking motion. I do like flicking when it comes to colouring hair. Green is not my favourite colour. And I do like some greens, but I tend to go for a more vibrant, limey sort of green or a really olive green. These sort of, yeah, it's okay. It's not my least favourite green, but it's not my favourite green either. Having said that, I did choose to make the bulk of the image green. So here's me waffling on about the fact that it's my least favourite colour on the card, and yet that's the colour I went for a jacket. So, you know, I obviously didn't hate it too much. So again, just using all the different colours, I thought this image went quite well because we were able to fit those 5 colours on very easily. And that is that one all coloured up and ready to use on another project. So card number 2. Not quite as fussed on this one. There's quite a few brown tones in that, which is not something I automatically go to. The other thing I'm finding about working along these through the box is I feel that this colour palette is quite autumnal. Now it's myself that's given me this challenge. I think this would be a great palette to pull out in the autumn, but right now we're at the beginning of January and I'm sort of thinking icy blues because, well, it's snowing outside right now, or looking forward to spring colours. But it's, as I said, it's still good to be challenging myself. I decided to do kind of like a swatch effect. I used the Colourcube Card Tambi paints because actually they seemed to be a really easy colour match for them. They were sort of bang on the colours. And I got this idea from actually watching Creative Paula and one of her sketchbook ideas. I will link to her video below. Where she just sort of swatched out a load of squares and then drew flowers over them. So I quite liked that idea, and it was a good way, this is a new way of creating for me, pulling out a card and then working strictly towards it. So I'm trying not to overtax myself too much when it comes to thinking of creative projects. I'm sure as we get more used to it, we will have more interesting and elaborate pages, but I actually quite like this. I think it looks really well on the page. I like to add a doodly border. I just think it helps to frame things, and I just like the way when you've worked with a project but adding details with a fine liner and a white gel pen, how that really sort of lifts the page. So I kind of went round and added that detail to the edges of all these little swatches. And as a page in my journal, I think it's really good. I'm quite happy with it. Now, I did decide that it would be nice to have a colour coordinated page on the other side so that as you flip through this journal, it would all look cohesive. So I don't want it the same, but I wanted it to kind of match. So I pulled out this stencil. This is another one of mine. So this is Floral Vines. And using the Artex markers that I'd literally just used for the opposite page, I decided to use the stencil as a drawing guide and draw some of this detail through. To be honest, I didn't really have a direction for this page. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just thought, do you know what? Let's get something down and go with the flow. That tends to be how I create. However, hated it. Lifted the stencil and absolutely hated it. So we knocked that right back with gesso. See, when it comes to mixed media crafting and art journal pages, gesso is your best friend. So we've managed to knock that back, so it now becomes a layer, like an essence, a nod in the background, but it's not screaming at you. And I've used the same colour paints that I did on the opposite side, but this time I'm just sort of dabbing them on the page, spraying them with water and let them run and do their own thing. I love this. When I'm colouring with like alcohol markers or pencils, I like to be quite precise. I like it to look a certain way, and I'm not very loose. So being able to play like that really just does, I really enjoy that creatively. Now I really didn't know what to do with this page, so to be honest, I left it overnight. I still didn't know what to do, so started to look through some of my rice papers. I saw this page, and then as I started comparing it to the card, I noticed that actually the colours in it worked really well, and I think it kind of worked with the overall look of that particular Colourcube combo, so decided to go with that. I'm going at great lengths here to show you that it actually matches. So the one thing I love about rice papers is they do just sort of sink right into the page, but the best way to make them look like they are part of the page is to make sure that you tear your rice papers rather than cut it. I find the easiest way to do that is just to go round the section that you want with a wet brush and tear it away. Now, because when you use your rice papers, it does pick up everything that's in the background, I decided to white out both her face and her arms because I didn't really want to end up with sort of green swirls in the middle of her face. Sometimes that works, but I didn't think it would for this particular image. So I whited that out and then gradually just stuck all of that down. Again, I've got my gel medium out here, Love my gel medium. It's great. Gel medium sticks anything to anything. So it's good when working with mixed media, even though we're only just sort of working on a journal page here. So we don't need that sort of extreme hold. But it does give you a little bit of wiggle room, and yeah, I find it a really useful tool, and it's good for syncing into page. Now, to make these two pages look like one, and some of the scraps that were left over, I've moved over and popped it onto the side of the page where we had those original swatches. So although it is two very different pages, we've kind of brought them together so it looks like a two-page spread. It was a bit different. I really, really like it. It's been an age since I've worked with rice paper. Now, I decided to build up some shadows here. I made a terrible mistake because what I should have done is covered all of that with clear gesso to unify the surface so that everything responded the same. However, I failed to do that. So what is happening is that paint is really sinking into the edge of the rice paper, and we now have this hideous dark line that also started seeping into her face. Once again, gesso to the rescue. I cannot emphasize enough how important gesso is, how much I love it. Seriously, gesso fixes all mistakes in life. So we touch up her face so that it doesn't look quite so horrific. We don't have big red marks running down her neck. So I fixed up that first, and then I just sort of matted that shadow area so it didn't look quite as patchy, and blended it in with the background. And I really like the results when it has finished. I'm really happy with it and think it worked well. So time for the final colour combo for this particular video, sepia tones. So I am using my, as you can see, it's an old planner from 2022 that I've just recently turned into a journal. I will link to that video. That video seems to be doing really well, which is, I'm glad you're loving it. So if you're interested in looking at how to just turn literally anything into a planner, I can link to that video as well. It'll probably come up at the end here. Once again, gel medium, and I am getting some paper down. So this is just torn paper from a book. I did have a comment on my last video going, you should have read that book first. I have read this book. I also have it available in a paperback and in digital form. I love this book actually. It's North and South. It's a really good book. Not the big North and South about the American War, but the one about, it's the Elizabeth Gaskell one. And I do really enjoy it. But I thought it was the nice sepia tones, and it was one of these books that I picked up for like 99p. And if you stick it in the charity shop and they don't sell it after a while, it does go into landfill. So we are recycling. Now, I tend to find that when you use a ripped page, it kind of looks quite stark. It's a really nice detail, and you want it to be a nod and a nuance, but I find that if I just leave it, it looks too stark. It literally looks like you have taken bits of paper and slapped it on a page, which essentially is what we have done, but we want it to look like it was meant to be there. And I just find using the gesso over the edges just helps to make it all look like it's always been there. Once again, coming in with some watercolours in the right colours and using the spray technique around the texture base. This is one of my freebie images, and I actually coloured her while I was sat watching TV, hence why we have absolutely no footage of it. So I sat, and myself and my daughter had a lovely little colouring session, and I coloured her up then using my Prismacolor pencils. I am then switching over to my die cutting machine and getting out, these are the Pretty Gets Gritty dies, and I thought it would help to give a real steampunk vibe. Now, I think these are available on my shop. They are also on Lynette's website as well. And I'm just going to stick them down onto the page. So I'm just sort of like moving them around, trying to get a layout that I think works. And I like this because it's kind of taking the eye down the page. To take that whiteness and starkness off, I am just edging it with some distress inks just to kind of knock it back and make it look a bit more antiqued. So we stick that down, and then like magically shadowing has appeared because for some bizarre reason I didn't hit the record button when I was doing that, but we have made that pop off the page just by kind of doing a little bit of shadowing in and around the die cuts. And then I am finishing it off with some like little white doodles and finally some sentiments. And that is that page done. Here are all three of them together, I hope you have enjoyed this challenge, and I hope that you'll maybe join me in it as well. In the meantime, before the next episode, if you enjoy art journaling, you might want to check out this video right here.